So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Morning, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast for part 2 of How the Hell Do We Replace Diego Carlos? I'm still not really over it. Well, not over it isn't the word I'm using, but I still kind of feel a small little bit kind of bummed out by the fact that we only got to see him for 2 games in the Premier League, and now we're going to be missing him for all this amount of time. And there's been a lot of money spent in him, and it's a really unfortunate situation. But it's going to be one where I'm going to stand back and I'm going to take a wide view of what Aston Villa do to try and replace this. So it's replace him. So it's. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, put it that way. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. They may stand put. They may cancel Courtney House's loan move, and then I might look very, very foolish talking about all these players. But what they might do is they might dip into the market. They might go spend money. Like with Aston Villa, I'm not sure what in the hell they'll do. The one thing I'm less sold on is that we will get a loan deal for a player without an option to buy, if that makes sense. I've seen that float around the internet. Why don't we just loan someone in? Get someone in on loan. There's a couple of things here with that is difficult to do if you're looking to upgrade the person that you have that you've lost. I think that's pretty difficult to do unless you're preying on a team that's looking to lose somebody or looking to get rid of somebody or looking to get rid of dead weight, and that may happen too. We might, but at that stage, we're only just loaning somebody in, and we've no option to buy. Whereas I think if we are loaning somebody with an option to buy, it'll be a younger player. So that's just something I've seen recently. I could be 100% wrong on that. I just don't know who we loan that's going to be this player that's better than Diego Carlos. Also, we will also have the faction of people who say, why are we loaning somebody and potentially improving another team's player? So there's a lot around loans that I'm just not sure we'll go dip into that market. Also based on the Axel Tuanzebe piece where we loaned him and couldn't get a permanent deal. And it seemed that Steven Gerrard was pretty frustrated about that. Then when they cancelled the loan, he went to Napoli and he didn't really do much, after he left Aston Villa last season. So I just don't know whether we've been bitten within the transfer market with regards to that previously, or maybe we look at something like we did with Philippe Coutinho, whereby we loaned him an option to buy. I potentially think that might be something, but I couldn't even begin to think about players we could loan. So we're going to talk about players today that we can buy. Yesterday, we spoke about some free transfers that we had that I just picked out, and I thought that they had a lot of experience, and I thought that they were players that could come in. We had the 2 guys who have obviously done it for club and country in Jason Denayer and John Brooks. And then we also had that wild card person who was Zagadou, the guy who has all the potential in the world, but injuries have derailed him. Basically, he lost 2 seasons of his career, and he's only 22 years of age. He's lost 2 seasons of his career to cruciate ligament injuries, or knee ligament injuries, I'm going to say. I'm not going to say they're cruciate, but knee ligament injuries. So obviously, that's going to be a red flag on him. But today, we're going to look at some players that we could potentially purchase, and we can take a look at some of those. So, let me bring up this. I'm going to be looking at this in 3 separate buckets. Okay, just to give a bit of context to this. Going to look at some people we've been linked to previously, the likes of Maxence Lacroix. I'll bring them up on screen here. We're going to look at Maxence Lacroix first, then we're going to look at Stefan de Vrij, and we're going to look at Ćaleta-Car. Okay, 3 players that we've been linked with previously, and 3 players that I think that that we can look to try and to maybe try and look back into our list, because remember, this isn't something whereby Diego Carlos goes down and the club goes, shit, we have to find somebody. Damn, who are we going to find to play centre half? there's a scouting department. Rob McKenzie and his scouting department, they are working on names, and they've got lists upon lists, I would imagine. So this is something where they can shuffle to, and they can be fluid with regards to this. They probably know who they want already, and they're going to work through their targets. Maxence Lacroix was somebody that was brought up previously, 6'2", French defender, playing with Wolfsburg, right-footed. You can see there he's had 100 starts over his career, plays mainly on the right-hand side of defence. Could come in here. Do we want the solely right-sided defender that comes in here, given that Diego Carlos could play both sides? Does it leave us short on having a left-sided centre-half? Do we really care whether we have a left footer and a right footer in centre-half? That seems to be something that's become really haute couture over the last 5 years or so, or 10 years or so. I know it makes sense that if you've got somebody who can clear the ball on their left foot from centre-half position, that it makes it a small bit easier. But does it really matter? I'm throwing that out there as devil's advocate. I would prefer to have a left and a right footer. But Maxence Lacroix was somebody that we looked at previously. Seeing here some of his statistics that we can show up on the screen there. Obviously, he's quite high in his percentiles with regards to tackles, amount of dribblers tackled, and the amount of pressures that he puts on. When we spoke about this guy previously, this guy engages high up on the field. He gets out there early and he engages people. Not to say that he's kamikaze. That's not what I'm saying here. But what he does is he goes to the player. We'll see with some of Aston Villa's players that we retreat back onto our 6-yard box or onto our penalty area and protect that D. Whereas Maxence Lacroix was somebody who kind of goes forward, attacks it further out. Yes, he's going to give away some fouls, but he's also going to attack that ball before it potentially comes closer to our goal and becomes a critical error, so to say, which is something that we can also appreciate, that that's something we're beginning to see more creep into how defenders are defending the ball. Very, very good interception rate, top of the class in interception rate, up there in the 99th percentile. Passes blocked, all that jazz. So from the point of view of the players that we have already, and the defensive style that we tend to favour, we favoured it under Dean Smith. We like to get in interceptions. We like to block passes. We like to block anything, shots, goals, whatever we try to do. We try and throw our body in the way and get in the way of things as best we can. The likes of Tyrone Mings does it, Konza does it, and Chambers did it the last day with two very, very good last ditch tackles to try and one that he took the ball off Onana's foot. So it's something that our players favour doing. But do we want to bring in somebody with a different skill set? I don't know. I really like Maxence Lacroix. More I've watched him since we were linked with him, the more I think that he's a very, very, very capable defender, more than capable defender, and his interceptions are like miles above there. I didn't even want to. If you can look at the wheel diagram, the bullseye the target diagram that I have there on the side, I was there going, I'm going to have to adjust the numbers here for his interceptions. And I went, do you know what? I'm not even going to, because we're not going to come across anybody who's going to have much more than 4.07 interceptions per game. So I just drew the lines past where I had it, just to cartoonishly show how far above the rest of the players that we have that he is with interceptions and so on. When it comes to aerial duel success, he comes in middle of the park, 63.9%. I'm going to say something in regards to aerial duel success, that there's a big talking point about we need somebody who's brilliant in the air. We need somebody who's excellent in the air. We need to control the air. We need to be, the master of the skies, not the skies, like most Irish people like me might say. But we need to be that. We need to be able to rule in the air. Aerial duel success percentages. It's something I've struggled with. I've put it in there. I've kind of gone, should I really have it in there? Because obviously, if somebody has way more aerial duels, and they're winning 7 or 8 aerial duels per game, but there's also balls raining down on them in the league that they're in over the course of a season, then the amount of aerial duels they win might be high, but their duel success rate might be low. So it might come in at 50%. If you 14 crosses into the box and you head away 7 of them, that's actually quite good. Your other centre half is going to take some of the work as well. So aerial duel success rate for me, it fluctuates anywhere between the high 50s and the mid to high 60s there. So there could be a 10% fluctuation, but obviously the amount of work and the amount of sample set in there could very easily distort that. So when we're talking about aerial duel success rate, I don't get too high or I don't get too low with regards to with regards to what the actual percentage is. It's one of those things whereby you got to look at the video, you got to look at what you see from them, and if their technique is good in the air, or if you see that they're completely powering it in the air, then that's something that I think we should look at here. Because as I always say, statistics can be confirmational bias for you if you really like a player, but also they should throw up areas where you need to go and look at that maybe the statistics might muddy the water for them as well. With Maxence Lacroix, I think he's pretty much a 63.9% aerial dual success person. So I don't think that anything muddies the water there with him. I'm just putting it in context, as we will see that numbers and statistics will be thrown out with people with what people want to see from their defender, and it could be said that X player isn't good in the air because their aerial dual success rate is only this, but it doesn't take into account the style of play, doesn't take into account the league that they're in, doesn't take into account the sample set or the amount of crosses that come into the box as well. So that for me is something that I want to put out there. See a couple of comments there with regards to House. I would be very surprised if Courtney House was still an Aston Villa player at the end of August. I think he wants to go out on loan. He's 26. I think at this stage, I think he wants to play football. I think he wants to go out on loan, wants to get himself back after this crazy injury history he's had since January. So I'm not counting on Courtney House, and I don't think the club are either in this instance. So if he stays at the club, fine, but I think they're going to want somebody else in there as well. But I don't think that Courtney House is going to be just that fourth choice defender, because I think he wants to go. I think he wants to leave the club, or he wants to maybe not leave the club permanently, but he wants to get some minutes under his belt, and it just won't happen at Aston Villa. And fair play to him for that, if that is the case. But that's just my murmurings and my thoughts on it as well. So here's Maxence Lacroix looking over here again to see how he fares up with regards to Diego Carlos. We can see the greens, we can see the reds. A lot of this stuff is minimal as well here. Obviously, when we look at the pressure success rate, there is a big difference there between the pressure success rate between Maxence Lacroix and Diego Carlos. And, there's also, when you look at it here, that Lacroix has almost double the amount of pressures per game than Diego Carlos does. So when I say that he attacks the ball and he's more aggressive in trying to get to the attacker early on in the phase of play, that's probably what I mean when I'm looking at this. So there's an interesting comparison here. They're certainly not like for like players. They're certainly not like for like players at all. But then again, I don't know, is there ever such thing as a like for like player? I think what you need to do is you need to be clearly defined in what you want to see from your defenders, and then try and fit that in then to the player from what you see on the tape and what the statistics tell you over a 365-day period. So I think that's quite important to look at too. When we're looking at, let's take a little look at Stefan de Vrij. Obviously, Stefan de Vrij is Stefan de Vrij, Inter Milan, playing with Inter Milan, started the last game for them, or the first game this season, started for them. I don't know how easy he's going to be to pry away from Inter Milan at all, unless they're looking to maybe trim their wage bill or something. He might be somebody that you might be able to get on loan with an option to buy, potentially agree a fee, and he comes in. At 30 years of age, do we want to be doing that with a player that, then that would mean we would have 3 30-year-olds on in our defensive rotation. I don't know whether that shows good forward planning with regards to something like that. But look, as I say, let's take a look at how he plays. So obviously he's a Dutch international, 58 caps for Netherlands and 3 goals. Cultured defender, kind of no nonsense as well with him as well. He's again, when we're looking at statistics, I'm going to just once again throw out the obvious here. He's playing in a team that is up there and dominates lots of teams within the league. So his amount of tackles. So you see there the tackles per 90 at the top. That's the amount of tackles he has per 90. It's not derogative to say that that's low, because he just doesn't have as much work to do as other defenders within the league. So when you look at things like that as well, it's always worth to take into context with regards to those. He's a very good tackler. He tackles. He wouldn't have played for the Dutch team for 58 appearances and then had Feyenoord, Lazio, Inter Milan on his CV. So when we look at the statistics here, that's to be borne in mind. Also, the blocks and the passes blocked there, he's right down the bottom within Europe's league. So he's not somebody who's going to go out and going to engage somebody early, like Maxence Lacroix was. So he's not somebody who's going to do that. He doesn't intercept the ball an awful lot. He's just a pure defender. He's going to tackle you if you come within his zone. He's just going to clear the ball essentially. And when he gets the ball at his feet, he's going to be able to move it at a pretty decent clip, because we can see there he's got 92.7% pass completion rate. Definitely a player you need to look at. You need to watch him play and then look at the statistics and go, oh yeah, well, he didn't have much to do in that game, so of course he's not going to have any blocks in that game. Of course he's not going to have any passes blocked in that game, because he had bloody nothing to do. The other team barely had any attacks. So there's a lot of context that needs to be taken when we're looking at defenders with regards to that. But Stefan de Vrij has all the positional intelligence in the world. He has all the experience in the world, and if we were to get him in there, he would be seen as a big signing. And I don't think it would be somebody that Villa would want to go away and spend all that money on for somebody who's 30 years of age and will be 31 before the season ends. But it could be. I don't know. As I say, we don't know what the coffers, what the money in the bank situation is. But for me, if he came in, fantastic. I would also want to see in the summer somebody else come in that's a bit younger to have some succession planning, and then we work from there. But that's not my problem. That's an Aston Villa problem. But very, very good defender, as we can see, or as you'll see if you turn on the tape from him. His statistics bear out that that some of his numbers are lower than they should be, but his experience is invaluable. And having some of that experience might be something that Aston Villa might want to dip into. Because, as I say, that leadership capability and that experience with playing at such a high level and playing international tournaments is something that Villa could tap into as well. But who knows? Who knows with regards to that? Wouldn't be my first choice, Stefan de Vrij, but I wouldn't be hopping up and down saying Johan Lange out if we signed him either. Because everything is context. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to view everything from 50 foot distance, even when we do sign somebody. Looking at him in comparison to Diego Carlos, we're going to see lots of reds and lots of greens here. Once again, workload and so on, I think, is something that we need to look at there with regards to him. But I've been into that already. His experience is something that will trump an awful lot of what we see there, specifically the blocks and the passes block, because they're very, very low. Let's look at the next person that we have. Next person we have is Ćaleta-Car. Ćaleta-Car is a guy I cannot place. As in, what like when you watch him play, he always looks like he's making a mistake. I don't know what. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. He always looks like he's like he runs with his head out over his feet or something like that. He looks like he's going to fall over. I don't know what it is. I'm sure everybody there is probably thinking differently. And by the way, that's not to say that he's a bad defender, but I think it's just something about the way that he plays the game. Always looks like he's a bit ungainly or something. I'm not too sure. But some of his statistics are very good. If we want that passing centre half, this is who we should, somebody who we could go and look at to sign. We were rumoured with signing him previously. He's only 25 years of age. Came up through youth football in Croatia. Got his big move to Red Bull Salzburg. Was with Red Bull Salzburg for 4 years, going on loan to their Liefering feeder club as well, which is basically their B team. Which is a good education for a lot of those players, and an education a lot of those players do go through. 84 caps for Red Bull Salzburg in the league, 4 goals, and he's moved on to Marseille since 2018. Good with his feet, but it's just something about the way he runs. I don't know. I could be seeing this completely differently. I'm not saying that it's definitive at all. But when we're looking at somebody like this, he could be the yin to a Tyrone Mings' yang, from the point of view that it would take the onus off Tyrone Mings to have to be that person that plays the ball out of defence all the time. Ćaleta-Car obviously can do that. We can see by his numbers, he's right up there with his progressive pass distances, with his pass attempts, his pass completion rate, 92.1%. A lot of people want to see a good pass completion rate from our centre halves. I should actually have broken down what ranges his passing is here. Passing comes in at. Let me just see if I can pull up that information here so that I can give you a little sample of this, because his main piece is obviously his passing ability. Just bear with me. This is great podcasting once more. So when we're looking at him, he's got a 97.7% pass completion rate in the short distances, medium distances 96.2%, and in long distances 78.3%. And he averages, actually, he completes as many long passes as he does. About 60% as many long passes as those short passes, and most of his passes are into that medium range, which means that he's bypassing, or he's maybe getting it into the further areas within that midfield area, and he's trying to go, he's not just passing it to the pivot directly in front of him, which to me is quite good. So somebody like that with that great passing range could be something that we're looking at, and with that progressive pass distance might be something that we're looking at as well. But once again, it's all about the style of centre half that Aston Villa are going to look for, because when we look here, Marseille obviously were once again top of the league, in and around the top of the league. They finished, what was it, third in the in La Liga, in Ligue 1 last year. So obviously teams weren't attacking them at the rate that other defenders might see. And we're going to be looking at another French defender in a moment as well. We're going to be looking at two more French defenders again in a moment. Well, three more French defenders, but two to play in Ligue 1. So when we look at somebody like Ćaleta-Car, it looks like as well that he hasn't had the workload of other centre halves. Also, when we look at the percentage of dribblers tackled, he's that's really high. And he's very rarely dribbled past, so he's really good with the ball when facing up defenders as well, which is something that we could look to include, because that's always a good skill to have. So if we're able to dispossess people higher up the field, like we were at Maxence Lacroix, and then maybe get that ball moving, like we can see that Ćaleta-Car does, well, then he could be somebody that Aston Villa could look at. And I wouldn't be adverse to signing him at all, even though there's just something with the mechanics of his running that I'm not sure what it is. And I could just be seeing things. I could be seeing ghosts with him with regards to that. But obviously a very, very experienced defender. How many caps does he have for Croatia? I'm just going to pop it up here. So he's 23 caps, 1 goal for Croatia as well. And 6'4". I never changed his height there. He is 6'4". And I'm just going to check to see that I change his foot as well, because if I didn't change his height, maybe I didn't change what foot he is. No, I did. He's right-footed as well, so I did change that. So his height, he's 6'4" and right-footed. So look, a bit of height in there. Although I'm looking at another site here that says he's 6'2", so I've got anywhere between 6'2" and 6'4", which is a big variation for me. We'll go by his Wikipedia and say that he's 6'4". Cool. Excellent. So that's Ćaleta-Car. Let's take a look at how he fares up between himself and Diego Carlos. Obviously, he comes out better in the passing stats as well. You won't find many better passing defenders than Ćaleta-Car, and I think that's why he's up there with so many teams. Been rumoured to go to Newcastle as well last January. Been rumoured with Manchester United. He was rumoured with West Ham as well in the past. And there was a spurious link with ourselves and him at the start of the transfer window as well. So that is Duje Ćaleta-Car. Is that how you spell his name? Is that how you pronounce his first name? Is it Duje or Duje Ćaleta-Car? But we'll just call him Ćaleta-Car anyway. Let's move on to the next option that we have here. And this is kind of where we get into the fun stuff. Because these are just people that I kind of... So I've got somebody here who is to appease we need to own the air. We need to defend as best as we possibly can within the air. And this is our boy if we want to do that. Boubakar Kouyaté plays with Metz. Just your archetypical, just defends and has no interest in doing anything else. He has no interest in doing anything else at all. And you can see that borne out here by the numbers. Up there with the amount of blocks he puts in per game, passes blocked per game, interceptions per game. Aerial duel success rate is 70%, is quite the aerial duel success rate, as I mentioned previously, does go through an awful lot of work as well. So he's an interesting player when we look at his defensive statistics, albeit that he does get dribbled past quite a lot. But then when you look at his passing statistics, I almost want to kind of just put my hand over those and just, no, we don't need those. We don't need to see those, because obviously that's where he falls down. But when we look at his passing statistics as well here, are they really that bad? Because when we look at them, he's a better passer of the ball. He attempts more passes of the ball, and he's had more progressive passes and has a similar pass completion success rate as Ezri Konsa. So when we look at those numbers, it's important to have that kind of target diagram or that bullseye diagram or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it's called, but if you look at that there, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. So do we really, like, if we want to get somebody in who's a ball player, maybe that's what he wants, what Stephen Gerrard wants to get in. But this guy could come in, could play alongside Tyrone Mings, who has a better progressive pass rate and attempts more passes. If they want to continue to have him to be the centre half that does all the passing work out of the back, well, then bring in somebody who's imperious in the air, like a Boubakar Kouyaté. Maybe. I don't know. He has been linked with a couple of teams previously. Gosh, off the top of my mind, I can't think of who they were. I can't think of who they were. I was just looking up my notes here to see if I could think of anyone that was that he was linked to. But Burnley have been linked to him. I'm just looking up here. Bristol, no. Yeah, Bristol City. So he's been linked to a couple of teams in the Championship. I'm almost certain he's been linked to teams in the Premier League as well, but I just can't think of any off the top of my head. But look, if we want to go out and get somebody who's imperious in the air, well, Boubakar Kouyaté, you won't find many better than him in the air as well. And I'm going to move on pretty quickly from him because he is the kind of the joker in the pack that I've put in there. I would be very, 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 very surprised if we did sign him. But he is, as I say, if we do want to go down the route of the aerial dual successes, somebody like him might be in play. Here he is, and this is how he stacks up against Diego Carlos. Defensively, statistically, he's a better defender, more passes blocked, more interceptions, more aerial dual success rate, more blocks, more pressures. High. This is one thing that's actually a lot of times when you're looking at people talking about Kouyaté and we're looking at things on the internet about him, people don't buy into the fact that he's pretty mobile. They think that he's not because he's just he's aerial. He's so good in the air that people don't think that he's very, very mobile. But when you look at his pressures there, he pressures almost double the rate of Diego Carlos as well, and he wins those tackles. So he's getting in there, he's getting in around players, not afraid to tackle, not afraid to get the ball in the air, just loves defending. Loves defending and not interested in the finer things in life when it comes to playing the centre half position. From what you could see down with regards to his passing statistics. Next, we're going to move on to somebody that I think is complete pie in the sky. Evan Obita Ndika from Eintracht Frankfurt. Anybody who watched their run to victory in European football last season, you might have seen him in the final against Rangers. This guy is brilliant. There's my synopsis on him. Is actually brilliant. And I could probably leave my synopsis at that. He just basically has everything when you watch him. He's a big, imposing character. He's left-footed. He can carry the ball out of defense. He can play. He can pass the ball about. He's just a brick. Pressures the ball. You can see it there. Tackles dribblers at a decent rate. Like he just has it. He just has that ability to play a centre half. Now the thing with him is his contract is running down. And I think I think that the new phenomenon of players running down their contract to get a free transfer move, because we've seen that phenomenon happen quite often. And we spoke about it when Boubakar Kamara signed for us. Now, people are still going to need to stump up for this guy, but I don't think he's going to sign. Like at the moment, it doesn't look like he's going to sign a new contract at Eintracht Frankfurt. And he's going to go into the free agent market and see who's going to come in and bid for him. But bidding to him as opposed to the club controlling where his future lies. It would be smart for a team to get in there and start bidding money for him now, if they were a top team, because this guy has everything. He really does. You just watch him. He's just a giant. He's just really, really good defender. So have a look at him if you haven't seen him. I don't think there's an ass's roar in hell this guy comes to Aston Villa Football Club. Not an ass's roar in hell. Not that we're not a club of big enough stature or whatever. I just think that Eintracht Frankfurt are going to look for money, and I think that other teams, if there's a sniff that this guy is available for a price anywhere near a price that we could afford, are willing to spend, I think other teams come in and gazump us, because there's a pretty stiff market for centre halves at the moment, and he's definitely somebody who's like he's no secret within European football. absolutely no secret is this guy within European football. And we can see it, like his numbers bear it out there in Dika. Look, don't get me wrong. If he rocks up in a new Castoria shirt, then all of a sudden it's like we get that welcome to Villa Park tweet out of nowhere, and we've signed this guy. It could be a No Pants podcast again, as I've said. It's like it would be one of those ones that you'd literally have to stand up and applaud the board. You'd have to stand up and applaud Stephen Gerrard, because this guy could pretty much point a finger at a club, and I would imagine they would want to have a crack off signing him. And I think that's what he's looking for. That's why he's looking to get into free agency. And that's not a criticism of his character or of himself in general. It's just, I suppose, for me, it's just a kind of a commentary on potentially where maybe young players are looking that the market is going. They don't want the clubs to have a say on where they're sold to or what bids are accepted. And maybe sometimes like this, it's an interesting one, because look, we have a situation with Boubakar Kouyaté. But then again, what I'm saying about this guy here, we did sign Boubakar Kouyaté in that very instance. So, maybe we do have a shot. Maybe we do have a chance. I don't know. But this guy, you look at him, he's got it all. He's a big, imposing character. Just even look back at that game against Rangers, or look back at any of the games they played in Europe last season, if you want a pretty decent synopsis on him. He stands out a million miles when you're looking at them defending. And I'll let you guys go and enjoy that if you've not watched him defending, because I think he's really, really good. Here's how he stacks up with regards to Diego Carlos. Once again, I'm not going to say a better pure defender. He's better numbers from pure defensive side of things, should I say here, because once again, the context is he did have more work to do over the course of the season as well. But when you look at these numbers, there's no denying that he's an impressive character. He's an impressive defender. And definitely, look, if the opportunity comes up, absolutely get him in. I just don't think we have a snowballs of signing this guy. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about a guy called Castello Lukeba. And the reason I wanted to bring this guy up is because there's been a lot of talk about Jason Denayer yesterday, and obviously he plays with Lyon, and he only had, from memory, I think it was 19 starts for Lyon last season. And when I went looking into it, I went, you'd think that, his contract got a bit fraught and he couldn't agree a new contract with Lyon. So Lyon wanted to keep Denayer. They couldn't agree a number on a contract. I think Denayer wanted more playing time. But the reason he didn't get playing time is this chap. He had 30 appearances last season. He ended up starting 30 games for Lyon. He's only played 31 games in his career. This guy hit the ground like an absolute train last season. He was nominated for Young Player of the Year in France, and out of nowhere, and people were like, where did this guy come from? Lyon trusted him with game time, and he rewarded their trust. He's a left-sided centre half. Now, he's by no means the finished article, okay? By no means the finished article, but he's somebody that's really interesting. And I got watching him last night, and I went, this guy's good. This guy wasn't nominated for Young Player of the Year just because of his playing time alone. This guy's good, and his numbers bear it out. And when we look at it here, I've spoken about guys who can defend. I've spoken about guys who've got decent passing numbers. So when you look at maybe somebody like a Maxence Lacroix, if we get an Maxence Lacroix, he might have similar defensive numbers, but he doesn't have anywhere near the passing numbers of this guy. If you look at a Boubakar Kouyaté, like I mentioned, he's got better defensive numbers, but he's got absolutely dreadful passing numbers. So what I'm looking at here is a happy medium. This guy's only 19 years of age, won't be 20 until just before Christmas. If I was going to plow into the market, and if we were looking at spending a lot of money, I think it's favorable, and I think it's intelligent for the club to do something with a player like this. So you go and you find a guy that's got potential that you've been maybe looking at for the last 12 months, and you maybe push the button early on him. Something along those lines is what I'm saying. So this guy bridges the gap between your Bogarts, who are 18 and hasn't got a lot of first team experience, and your Josh Feeney's, who's 17 and certainly is maybe a bit too young. This guy's going to be 20 later on the year. So when we talk about buying players that are better than what we have already. How's about we buy a player that we think maybe in 12 months' time is going to be able to sit into that role and maybe force, maybe have a battle on their hands with, or force one of the two starters to have a battle on their hands? Because yes, Diego Carlos is going to come back, and we would hope that he would be the same player and get a place back in that team. But if you're churning the back end of the roster, it's better to do it by bringing in these guys and maybe overpaying for this guy. Maybe you pay the 18 million or you pay 20 million pounds for him, and you get him in now and you turn the back end of the roster because of the potential he has. Potential will always have a sell-on fee, specifically for somebody this young. So it could be something that Aston Villa could do with somebody like this. I don't know. Maybe go to Italy, try and find a cultured Italian defender for that's 19 or 20, because they've got some really good ones. That guy at Sampdoria, the big, massive guy, big, huge guy. He played against Ireland under 21s. I don't know if his name, Okore or something like that, or Ojoe or something like that. Big, massive guy. Like he looks like a wrestler, and he was playing against a lot of kids. Maybe somebody like that. Might be someone that they might look at. I don't know, is it Atalanta or Sampdoria he plays with? And I'll find his name, and I should have added him to the list because he was someone I meant to add this morning, but I didn't. But Aston Villa might look at something like that. You buy the potential in early, maybe pay slightly over the odds for what he is right now, based on what you think he could be, because we have an opportunity to sit somebody for 6, 7, 8 weeks to get them used to the system, to get them used to playing in British football, because we were blessed with having two good centre halves in Konsa and Chambers behind the two centre halves we have. And if we were to treat it like that, instead of just bringing in somebody who can start against Crystal Palace on Saturday, which is a pipe dream anyway, play the two guys that we have there that know the system. Play one of the two guys that we have there that know the system. And bring in somebody here that can learn over a 6 to 10 week period, and then maybe forces their way into the team. And if they don't force their way into the team this year, they're a damn good backup. And if they're a good backup, well, then that's okay too, because next year they could be pushing the likes of Tyrone Mings as he gets up to 30 years of age. His stand-on value starts to get a bit lower. Maybe there's a natural decline with older players or whatever. I'm not saying this is going to happen with Tyrone Mings, but it's good squad building. It's good squad churn. It's good succession planning, I think, which is something that we need to look at. And also, this guy being 19 years of age, in 3 or 4 years' time, should I say, if this guy did get his chance or did grow through Aston Villa, you could have himself and Feeney at centre half position, and essentially you'd have two players in their early 20s, and hopefully be able to tie the two of them down, and that there will be your succession plan going forward. So I think that's important. I think that's important to kind of look at some player like this, a younger player that people will scratch their heads and go, who the hell is this guy? But the potential is there. I trust Rob McKenzie over anyone, because if his track record is actually fantastic, it's spotting talent like this. So I'm putting this in here as well, along with the free agents last week, to say we might be scouting a guy that might have maybe future potential or fits into the system right now, and it might not be the name that everybody wants. So we got to kind of look at who this replacement is going to be from a 50-foot angle, because it's going to be important for us to understand the context and maybe just wait for them to see how they play within the team and criticize accordingly if they play shit, but also praise them accordingly if they don't. Callum Chambers, point in case, a lot of people scratched their head and went, oh, he's probably maybe he's going to play defensive midfielder, maybe he's going to be right back. But I can't see him getting ahead of Courtney House or Ezri Konsa in the defensive stakes. And he was starting games by the end of the season and scoring pearlers against Leeds United. So, yes, he could be the exception to the rule, but it could also be a result of very good scouting and finding somebody who fits into our system that we want in the centre half position. And I'm willing to give Rob McKenzie the benefit of the doubt on that point. Right, lads, I'm going to leave. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to go to some of your comments there because some of the comments have been flying in, and I appreciate your comments there. I'm going to take these slides off the screen. So we have Porcelain says Zagadou and Denier are both available, and free transfers should be all over that. Yep, part 1 yesterday. Covered that one in depth. So if you want to take a look back at that, and I'm a big Zagadou fan, albeit that he missed more or less 2 years of his career with knee ligament injuries somewhere along the line. Damien says, would a loan be more appropriate? I'm sure the club has long-term plans about squad building. Would another centre-back on a long-term deal be part of that? I think it would be. I think it would be, considering that if you look at our two centre halves at the moment, and this is where I think the guy I just mentioned comes into play. that I think they'd be willing to go and spend because to turn maybe the back end of that roster. If you're looking at Chambers, if you're looking at Carlos and Mings, both of them are going to be 30, 31 by the end of the season. So you're really looking at maybe 2-3 years best out of them. The opportunity could be to bring in somebody now, as I say, and get them to grow as that fourth defender, and then use them then. Maybe opens up an opportunity. Ezri Konsa puts himself in the shop window, and I'm not advocating that we sell him, but I'm saying Ezri Konsa puts himself in the shop window. We get an offer of 25-30 million for him in the summer. We're comfortable with selling him because we know what's coming up behind him in this person that we've spent 18 to 20 million on now. So I think there's probably mental gymnastics with regards to that the club are going to have to do over the next few days as well. That's a good one, actually. That's a good point from CS27, and something that I kind of brushed over. And you make a really good point about the loan signings, that potentially we could get somebody out there that might need game time to make sure they're in the World Cup squad. That's a really good point. And it now makes me really want to do a part 3 of this, who could replace Diego Carlos, because that's not something I actually thought of in a World Cup year. Yeah, might be onto something there. Thanks for the content, the content suggestion there, CS27. I might be on that one later on. Kahoot Game says, pity that Joe Rodden has gone to France. Yeah, he's gone to Rennes, that we played in preseason, and I think it's good to see players moving to different teams, different leagues, and so on, to try and open their minds a small bit more. Lit asks, would I be up for Boubakar Kouyaté at centre half? He can play there. I wouldn't, because we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. There, and I think that we either stick with Boubakar Kouyaté being a central midfielder. I think that, we bought him to be that number 6, and I think we play him at that number 6, and we then go out and buy somebody to be this to be the other centre half, or we loan someone, or we sign someone on a free, or if we think that Josh Feeney is ready to take the step up to Premier League football at 17 years of age. I think we live by the sword, we die by the sword by that decision when we brought Boubakar Kouyaté in to play a defensive midfielder. Yes, there might be times he may need to move back there in terms of mid-game substitutions or mid-game tinkering, or moving back there into a 3 when we're under pressure, of course, but I just think that, you have to back yourself and sign him. We've finally got a good 6 for the first time in ages, and I think that the club will want to continue him in that position. Albeit it's great that he can play in 2 positions. Chambers is massively underrated, absolutely, and that's why I think the club like him. I think the club are happy with Chambers and Konsa. So I think that when you bring in a player, it might be that somebody that comes in as your 3rd or 4th, that younger type player, as I say, or even a player on a free transfer that's that steady Eddie, good professional that would play when he's called upon. Almost like Courtney House, but as I say, I think Courtney House is going to be on the situation whereby he's going to want to come back from injury. He's seen 3 years where he's got sporadic games, and I think he probably wants to look at, listen, can I get a move to the Championship where I can get 30 games under my belt, prove to people that I can actually stay fit for a season, and then see what happens. Maybe I prove to Aston Villa that I'm a viable option going forward, or if not, I can maybe get a move. And I think that fair play to him if he wants to back himself to do that, because I don't think any player like that's maybe a 4th choice centre half should really be forced to sit in the bench and still be the 4th choice centre half now, considering we brought somebody in and parachuted him in over him in Diego Carlos. So I would have no problem with Courtney House if he said, listen guys, I still don't want to stay around even after this injury. I'm still only going to be 4th choice centre half. I still want to go to Watford. I think the club will honour that and respect that. I don't think they'll stand in his way if that is what he's thinking. So from my point of view, that's my point on that one. And Dean Everest says, or do we go and get Gary Cahill and have him as a player coach? Gerard wants winners in the dressing room, and he is one. I don't know. I wouldn't be in favour of it, because once again, he would be, I don't know, I'd prefer to go the younger player route and spend money on it than getting, he must be 37, see? What age is Gary Cahill? Is what age is he? What age? Tell me, internet. Tell me. He's 36. He'll be 37 in December. Maybe he has the John Terry effect. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see on that one. We'll see on that one. Where else are we? Oh, there's a good suggestion. Banging the drum for Nico Elvedi. Good passer, good air, and he's Swiss international, should be available for less than 20 million. If I'm not mistaken, is he a Gladbach player? Is he still with Gladbach? Is Elvedi with Gladbach? And that's someone that that's a good shout of somebody that could be gotten. Oh, that's not this is great. This is great podcasting here as I Google things just as people are making their suggestions. Yeah, he's with Gladbach. He's only 25 years of age. He's only 25. Jeez, he seems like he's around forever. Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad suggestion at all. 6'2", plays right back and right centre back as well. And he's ton of games for Gladbach, 200 games for Gladbach, and 38 games for Switzerland as well. Not a bad shout, absolutely. Will not a bad shout at all. Luke says that he wanted Lacroix initially, so we'll be buzzing for that. Ćaleta-Car goes in 2-footed to every challenge, so I think our disciplinary record would take a bashing. I think that might be it. Is it he's tackling technique or something that just looks off for me? There's something in it. I can't put my hands on it with regards to what it is for Ćaleta-Car, but every time I watch him, you can see the really good passing range he has. You can see that he's comfortable on the ball, but there's just something about the way he moves or something. I can't put my hand on it, but that's just the idiosyncrasy that I have when I look at him too. Zagadou has to be the shout, has to be for me. Great shout that. Yeah, as I say, we chatted about him yesterday, and I just don't know why he's on the market, because he was like a shining light of French football only 2 or 3 years ago, and you know, and now he's sitting around in a free contract with no one taking a chance on him. So I would have to ask questions with regards to that. But the talent is there, and the ability is there, and what he's put out in tape when he's been fit is ridiculously good. So yeah, absolutely sign me up for that. I would definitely be up for taking a punt on him for sure, and having him as my fourth choice for sure. Not fourth choice in the literal sense, but bringing him in, nursing him back. He could still rehabilitate while he's here. He's not going to be thrust straight into action straight away. Yeah, Party DZN said before we bought Carlos and Dika was the guy, but there's no chance we get him this summer. We won't pay big bags of cash, so our only hope is loan to boys. He's only got 1 year. Yeah, as I say, Dika only has 1 year in his contract, and I think that he's looking at maybe getting a free transfer move. But look, once again, as I said, we will see this an awful lot more with people trying to get to the cusp of running down their contract, or even get to January so they can talk to their teams before re-signing on with teams, because it's a lucrative market moving on free transfers. And we can blame the likes of Paris Saint-Germain for that, the way that they signed Sergio Ramos and Donnarumma. And listen, hey, if it's financially viable, it's financially viable, and we shouldn't be giving out about it. Where else have we? Yeah, Lit Talk agrees with me that Lukeba is a player for sure. Yeah, somebody that I was blown away with when I was watching him. I think he's really, really good, and like as I say, he's just somebody that we'll fire out there, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, and that's really it. We're going to finish in this. Tuanzebe on loan again. No, I don't want him. Fourth time, fool me. Was it? No, in fairness, he didn't fool us. He was very good in the championship anytime he was here, but I think his last loan, I don't think Steven Gerrard's going to dip back in there again. You know, he cancelled his loan deal to go to Napoli. He got 1 game at Napoli, you know, which is fair play to him. Go in, back yourself. But I don't think Maxence Tuanzebe is going to be on the board for us when we do look to make a signing, but fair play to him. Fair play to him indeed for backing himself, even though it didn't work out. That's going to do it for us today, guys. I had been planning on doing the voicemail podcast today as well. I may have to take a rain check on that until tomorrow. Keep an eye on Twitter. I will let you guys know. I might come on live maybe and do it at 9:30. Maybe if I see Paddy's in the comments here, if Paddy's around, we might get him to jump in on that as well. I may need to take a rain check on that because I got stuff going on today. So I will let you guys know on Twitter. But thanks a million for everybody for tuning in today. With 48 minutes done, really appreciate your time. If you do want to send us a voicemail, since we still have time, it will be later on today that we'll be doing it. You can do so at this. You can leave us a voicemail for our voicemail podcast on www.speakpipe.com/for the love of Paul McGrath pod. If you want to talk to us about who you think is the replacement for Diego Carlos, if you want to talk to us about maybe squad building, about anything at all, your chance to have your shout, and we'd love to hear from you. Just leave us a voicemail. Do not leave your email address. Do not leave your email address. Do not leave your email address in The box is there, it's optional, but do not leave your email address. Otherwise, I will have to delete your voicemail and email you and ask you to send it back in again. So any email addresses that are left, any voicemails that are left when you include your email address, I will have to delete them and they won't be played out in the show, unfortunately. Anyway, we're going to leave you at that, guys. Have a great Tuesday, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.